in being inspired. We may have some of our disagreements, whatever the organizations we belong to, we may have philosophical, ideological disagreements, but we are getting together in this one day, in honor of this one day, African Liberation Day. Let's not forget that. We are all here to work until all Africans are free, until all people who are oppressed are free. Yeah. So we are here for that. So let's not forget that in the work we do. Let's not forget that. So are the panelists ready in this moment? You ready? Yeah. So our topic for this first panel discussion, Grassroots Organization. Again, organization. That's, if you recognize the word as organization here, so that's what we need to do. So I'm just going to let you know who the panelists are. If you're all ready, you're welcome to come up. Angel Hart from Sacred Sites Protection and Rights of Indigenous Tribes. We also have Pierre Lavoisier from Haiti Action Committee, Lara Kiswani, Arab Resource and Organizing Center. We have the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, folks from there. And I just want to note, these are also people who consistently support African Liberation Day. And it is wonderful to come together with organizations in the name of freedom. We also have Siri Brown from Merritt College, Stevens Uncle Bobby Johnson, Love Not Blood, Oscar Grant, Nyanga Uka, and Nyanga Uka is my brother from the Portland chapter, APRP. So, my goodness, so that's what's happening. Please stay tuned for this panel discussion, Grassroots Organization. And again, join an organization if you're not part of one. Just, if you are enlightened today, just get involved and work towards freedom. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Asante. Asante.
Asante
Sana. And Ken, I'm sorry, I'm trying to moderate and at the same time stay out the way over here. The stage is kind of small, but we appreciate the space. We love the space. We've been doing this here for a while. So, at any rate, being part of an organization is being part of a collective. So, whether it's the literature table, the food, drumming and libations, moderating a panel, we all chip in to get the political education to the masses. And there will be people coming through all day. The crowd will be growing as the day goes on. So the purpose of this, of course, is to politically educate the masses of people to get involved in organization. Question to the crowd for a little class participation. How's capitalism working out for y'all? How's the status quo working for y'all? Because we all get to a point, you know, no matter what it is, when we start to study or we start to get put on to certain information or we just start to realize what's going on in the world around us and we get fed up and we realize how unjust and how unfair things are. But even when we as individuals realize that and our book collection grows and we got the underground DVDs and all that, still as an individual, you can't stop this system in its tracks. In order for us to really have an impact, in order for us to really turn this thing around and right this thing, we have to get organized. And so we have a panel up here of people who participate in grassroots organization, getting out here amongst the people and building revolutionary organizations. And so we want to learn as much as possible from these people up here right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is just allow you all, we'll say a minute or so, just to keep the flow going and get to the questions, to introduce yourself and your organization that you're working with and the goal, the objective of the organization.
Greetings, everybody. How's everybody doing out here? I didn't hear y'all. How's everybody doing out here? All right, good. Yeah, we need that energy, you know what I'm saying? It's a collective participation, like the sister said earlier. But my name is Nyanga Uuka. Nyanga means moon in Tosa, and Uuka means rise up in Tosa as well, because the moon gives light to the darkest night. And I'm an organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party, Oregon chapter.
Hotel. I am affectionately known to the community as Uncle Bobby. I am the uncle of Oscar Grant. Of course, his mother, Wanda, is my baby sister. I, in 2010, started the Oscar Grant Foundation, specifically for her and Tatiana, because she had no voice. And as a brother, I felt that to leave a legacy for Oscar was really important. In 2014 of June, as my sister began to acquire her voice and speak on behalf of her son, I definitely turned the foundation over to her and started in the process the Love Not Blood campaign, which I'm part of today. Co-founder, my wife, who's not here today, also co-founded that. But we specifically speak to the issue and of course organize all across the United States concerning police terrorism, of course mass incarceration, and police terrorism, mass incarceration. What am I leaving off? I'm kind of blank. I'm tired because I came just from Seattle last night, up there organizing with the Latinos and the brothers and sisters, because there's disunity there. But however, to keep this short, affection on to the community is Uncle Bob.
Hi everyone, greetings. My name is Pierre Labossiere. I'm with the Haiti Action Committee, and we are a 23-year-old organization. I'm a co-founder of that organization, and it was specifically founded as a result of brothers and sisters in Haiti letting us know that we needed to build solidarity between our brothers and sisters in Haiti and sisters and brothers here in the Bay Area and in the US, because their voices were not being echoed, were not being carried out. So what we were hearing was from the corporate media, which was distorting the message of the Haitian Revolution, going way back to the days when we were kidnapped from our motherland. And so that's been the purpose, that's what we've been doing, and we've tried to bring their voices out to the people and how best to support each other in our struggle against the common enemy, which is capitalism, imperialism, and racism. And many of the other isms that come out of this greed and that those illnesses that impact on a group of people that have too much wealth, and they are so greedy, they want more and more.
Good afternoon, my name is Lara Kiswani. I'm with AROC, the Arab Resource and Organizing Center. We're based out of San Francisco, and we fight for the dignity and liberation of Arab people from here to our homelands. We came out of an organization called ADC San Francisco, and from the late 80s we were organizing here and nationally against repression and against war and advocating for people, and Arab people specifically. In 2007 we became AROC, and we adopted a service organizing model. So our model is to provide direct services to our community to challenge repression from law enforcement specifically, and to organize our community to fight against repression and the militarism and war and aggression in our Arab homelands.
Good morning, it's nice to be here with everyone today. My name is Siri Brown. I'm the great-granddaughter of Lily Briggs and descendant of great foremothers. I also teach African American Studies at Merritt College. I'm part of the second generation of the Black Studies movement, which began here in Oakland at Merritt College in 1967 with the country's first department, which was a clearly defined Black nationalist, Pan-Africanist department, a maroon department within the institution of higher education. And so I'm happy to be here today to talk about the importance of Black studies and ethnic studies in these times when this movement is under attack from all sides, internally and externally.
Peace, my name is Senyaka Bryant. I'm with the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. I'm the current National Secretary. And I am just representing our organization. Our organization is about the liberation of African people in the United States, first. Secondly, the unification and liberation of African people around the world, from the diaspora to the continent. And thirdly, the end of all forms of oppression, be it gender oppression, be it capitalism, etc. And I'm just happy to see everybody here.
Tokiasi. Imachi apo Kia Itzacho Wapa Blue. We are, Angel Heart and I are part of an organization based in Vallejo, Sacred Sites Protection and Rights of Indigenous Tribes. And we do work to protect sacred sites of indigenous peoples and also to challenge institutionalized racism and oppression in the Vallejo City Unified School District. We just recently got a grant to discuss indigenous mascots that were recently decolonized in Vallejo, the Vallejo High School Apaches and the Solano Middle School Chieftains. And so we're using that as a segue to get into the school system to develop an ethnic studies program. And we really are excited about the potential in Vallejo because Vallejo is the most racially diverse city in the country. And we think that it would be an awesome place to have similar discussions that we're going to be having here today. And I look forward to networking with people here and maybe getting some collaboration in the classrooms. I hope.
I echo what he said.
All right. Okay, so again, the topic of this panel is grassroots organization. The what, the when, the how, the where. So I want to read a little something kind of just to put some things in context, and then of course I have questions for the panelists, but just as a framework, and Sister Nana Honda drew this up, so I just want you all to hear it before we get into it. African people and other struggling peoples are facing major changes, fights, and issues globally and locally. This current wave of state-sponsored terror, privatization of land and resources by the 1%, and the looming ecological crisis are some of the major waves of this current storm. There is also a deafening silence from the movement regarding the attack on African women and women in general. Without a conscious, intentional, and revolutionary approach to grow grassroots leadership, our ability to sustain, grow, and build capacity for our movements is vulnerable. So we understand, or we can highlight the problems and the issues and the isms and schisms in society. And again, as I said before, we even introduced the panelists, knowing that as an individual is not enough, getting upset about that as an individual is not enough. We have to come together with like-minded people. We have to come to the masses of our people to be able to explain it and articulate it to them so that they help get involved. And this is how we build an organization. So being the topic of grassroots organization, and we'll start on this side this time. The first thing we want to do is learn from each other how we define grassroots power before we get into the hows. So I'm going to put that to the panelists. How do you define grassroots power?
I would define it as local organizing in your area, and sometimes that really means like really hitting the streets and getting to know your neighbors. Like you said, people with like mind in your area. Unfortunately, sometimes it's really difficult because of finances. We are not that 1%, and so financial problems or issues can be a bit of a roadblock. But there's lots of different ways to organize with other people and network and to get that going and have open discussions and meetings and share ideas and support and empower one another. So that's what it means to me.
I think grassroots suggests minimal resources. I think a lot of organizations that are not grassroots have an established budget. They have more resources, I suppose, in general. But I think grassroots is also something that can be localized, where you're thinking about a national or international issue, but you're acting locally with with the resources that we have in our community. And sometimes those are diminished, or sometimes there has to be an education process, and not everyone is on the same page. Whereas if you have like a national or international organization, you might have more resources in that regard.
I definitely agree with the local character. I also think that building grassroots power is about building the independence of initiative amongst the most marginalized folks, right? And doing it in a way where they're not going to be dependent on the people and the same forces that are keeping them under lock and key, keeping them oppressed. Right? And I think building up the independence and the militancy in the masses of the people is super, super critical in these moments. We see, even with a lot of the protests that have been going on across the country, we've seen massive amounts of money come in to try to divert the will and the momentum of the people's movement right now. And this is something we see time and time again happening in communities all over the world. It's something we have to be really vigilant about and really, develop ways of training and preparing our people to deal with that sort of an issue.
I agree with everything everyone's saying, and I think symbolically, if you think about the word grass and roots put together, that the grass, is green, and it's symbolic of the lands of Africa, the resources of Africa, the red, black, and green understanding, and that the roots really are the people. And the strength of the grass is based in the fertilization and the watering of the people. It's really the roots. You can see grass that's brown, you can see grass that's dead, but it can still come alive again if it's fertilized and watered. It's really about the roots underneath. And so, to me, that's so critical, because all of us in here know that the answer for us as a people, that the answer lies within our people. That we actually know what it is that we need. We may not have all the academic fancy terms, and we may not have the money, but we do have everything that we need. Even when we think that it's dead, just pour a little water on it, a little consciousness, a little politicization on it, and you will find this grass grow green and right. So I think of that in terms of ethnic studies and black studies, and how that movement came out of the roots of the people. It's students, broke, students are always broke, saying, we demand that you teach us about us, that we learn about us. We will sacrifice our own education so we can learn about us. And it's those roots that flourished into what becomes this national and international movement to institutionalize people of color, African people, indigenous people, Latino people learning about themselves and growing strong roots so that they can flourish strong grass.
And I also agree with what everyone said. I guess in the context that we are operating within, I would say grassroots power also entails making it as difficult as possible for the state to do its job. So it means for us to be able to create ways where we don't have to depend on the state for our communities in any way, shape, or form. And the more we're able to do that, the more grassroots power we actually have.
Yeah, and me too. Definition of grassroots power. There is power when we all come together, when we all exchange and share with each other. I don't have the answers individually, neither of us has the answers, but collectively putting our heads together, we have the answers to what we need. One of the things that the 1%, the proverbial 1%, what they do is they convince us that we cannot do.
That's right.
They convince us that we don't have the know-how, you see, and many of us, and they work hard to make a disconnect between the wisdom and the knowledge of our foremothers and forefathers and us right now. For example, many young people, and I don't just mean children, I mean people who are of a certain age, they don't really know where the produce that they get at the supermarket, where it comes from. You see, they have managed to disconnect us from the land. And so it's only when we come together and share with each other and work in unison that we can challenge the system and come up with the solutions that we need. And grassroots power is able to dream, is to be able to be creative, to be able to come up with solutions to our problems in what we are dealing with. And it's to be able to say no. No to the seduction of the 1%, no to the seduction of their money and their power, and to create and to build what we need to build for ourselves.
So I believe my perspective and understanding of a grassroots movement really comes from just looking at historically what has happened. In any movement that has had any success, it started at the grassroots level. And that's critical for a mass movement to develop. So organization, well, of course, we know this. Organized lives is more powerful than disorganized. Organized lives is more powerful than unorganized truth. The truth comes from the grassroots movement. It is an upside down pyramid. It is people power. And it is from that point where we begin to transform the minds of those that are disenfranchised, or those that are in communities that are totally overwhelmed and overwhelmed with white supremacy, and deciding that if they got a new house, it'd have to be white with a white picket fence, and maybe even say a white dog, not knowing that they have basically succumbed to white supremacy. And so it is our responsibility that in order to effect change, it must start right here on this block. As Sister Nahanda said, it must start right here across the street and talking about the young sisters that are being trafficked. Grassroots movement is critical for change and for us to have success in real freedom, justice, and equality for all. And I jotted down a couple other things, so let me see if I said it all. And most importantly, and I heard the aspect of, you don't get no financial help. This has to be from the heart. That's right. You have to have a love for your people. For a grassroots movement to be successful. That's right. You have to have it from your heart.
Right on. Y'all put me after Uncle Bobby. So I gotta bring it. But grassroots is people. People is the greatest resource that we have on this earth. All the people in this room, we can educate each other on any issue we brought up right now. Everybody can give some, and we walk out of here knowledgeable about an issue. Grassroots is finding a commonality amongst all of us, because we all come from different, we're all different. Even though we Black, African, we are different. Africa is a broad continent, the world is huge, and we are different, but we have a lot in common. And we have to find out all the things we have in common and move that movement. We have to move forward, like forward ever, backwards never. Those words mean a lot, we just don't say that, we believe in that. And I just figure right now we got a lot of like root shock. And so we have to fix the root shock that we have, because the capitalists have got us pretty shaky right now. So we just got to come together and, like I said, empower each other and all be the leaders that we need to forward this movement.
Asante.
Okay, so who was it again that said capitalism is working for them? No? There's nobody, right? So everybody understands. So raise your hand, more class participation points. Raise your hand if you understand this monster. have a righteous hatred for this monster. And if you could flick a switch and do it yourself overnight, you'd have done it a long time ago. I mean, I think everybody in this room, if we could get rid of this capitalist monster, this classism, this racism thing, we'd have done it a long time ago. Okay? But none of us can as individuals, correct? So all of you who feel like that individually, understand, of course, that you have to create, join, organization. That we have to organize ourselves as people. And I talk about it in a very basic sense like that because I see the youth in the room and I'm happy. We come here every year, we have the same revolutionary, grassroots, brother-sister organizations, and ideologically, we on the same wavelength. But when I'm rolling up here to come to ALD, I'm thinking about that person who's never been to ALD. I'm thinking about that person who's never been a part of an organization. And so, but who's already starting to get the understanding that something ain't right. That the history out of them been taught, and racism, capitalism, something ain't working. They're there, and they just need to go that next step. And so we really want to push organization amongst the youth and amongst the masses of our people. So this next topic or question to the panel, so that you could politically educate the masses and the youth that are here especially. We just talked about the definition of grassroots power. It's a word that's overused a lot, so I think it was time well spent to actually define it. Secondly, could you identify, each and every one of you, from your own point of view and your own experience, could you please identify components to grow grassroots leadership? The training, the culture, the education, for the people here who are interested in joining, for the people here who are getting that feeling that they want to be involved in grassroots organization, could you please again identify the components that you feel are necessary to growing grassroots leadership?
I think a component that would be really good, especially with the youth, they've got a lot to say in the way of art. And I think that's a component that might be sometimes being overlooked. Really get into the art, the expression of it. For example, there's an exhibit right now in Vallejo about the Hmong people. It's photography. So you get to hear their voices through the art. There's a historian that has it labeled by each picture. So when you're looking at it, not only do you have a beautiful image of the indigenous of this land, but you get their own account of historical trauma and the oppression and what's going on and their fight to save sacred sites in the Bay Area. Everywhere that you go all over the world, there are sacred sites. You can see the pyramids, you can see, but you can't see anything here in this land. And so why is it that Native Americans are always asked to sacrifice what is sacred to them? And so I think that art is one way to be able to do that, because everybody, no matter what walk of life that they come from, can appreciate art.
To me, it sounds like a similar question could be around parenting. Like what kind of example are we setting for our community, for people in our organization, for young people, and what is it that we're doing that we ask other people not to do, or what is it that we're asking people to do that we're not doing ourselves? And I think that we have to hold ourselves accountable, and we have to lead by an example. And I think a great mode for doing that is through the arts. And I think we would all like to get people on board. We're really excited about this. We all agree that capitalism isn't working for us, status quo isn't working for us, and we want there to be dramatic change instantly. But it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of personal work. And I think that through the arts is a great way to start, and to get young people excited, and to ask questions and have them challenge their thinking that they get through the seduction of capitalism and these competing messages that they're getting, that we have to have a strong answer to, a strong alternative for the youth, and have an outlet for them.
Yeah, I like to look at things in this regard as like a developmental sort of approach. We look at the system that we live in, and it really shuts people down. It stops people from really growing into everything that they could be. You know, the tools, the skills, the brilliance of the people are always either suppressed or geared and developed in a way that's gonna benefit our enemy. Okay? And when I look at building up our people, I always want to look at how can I take a person and give them the faith in themselves, right? To build on what they've got. And you look at people who start out, and this is young folks and old folks, this is like across the board, everybody's developing. Everybody's still developing. Nobody's reached that pinnacle of development, right? We look at a person that comes into our organizations, into our movements. You know, they might come to a big action and never think that they could lead that one day, right? They might come to a meeting and never think that they could be the one giving the presentation, right? And I think a lot of it is about identifying a particular skill, holding on to that, and like working with a person over time, right? Building a relationship with somebody over time to bring that out. And it's a deep thing to see people transform, right? I think the more that we're able to do that in large numbers, like what they do in Venezuela, right? A lot of the workers' assemblies and social assemblies they have in Venezuela, where they, you know, got people who didn't think that they could ever make decisions about their economy or decisions about their workplace, right? Where, you know, the social movement has kind of supported the people in large numbers in doing that. I think we could look at some of those models and look at some of the work that some of the organizations have done. And like I see people, there's people in this room that I know, I call anybody's name, there's people in this room that I know who started out, who started out shy, who started out, you know, not really having a lot of like internal faith in what they could do, right? And they're consistently through time and patience, right? Developing their leadership, developing just their own internal faith in their own power, you know. And I think it's a critical thing for an organizer to be able to see, right, and to help shape and build on.
I think a key component of grassroots organizing is self-knowledge. It's really, to me, the answer to everything. Because once you know who you are, then everything else begins to fall in line. You begin on a path of consciousness. And that path of consciousness always means that if I know and understand myself, then now I'm connected to my ancestors, I'm connected to my community, I move differently with my family. It's that self-knowledge that should be the basis of all knowledge. And I probably, all of us in this room have a story about, you know, what it was that made us become political, spiritual warriors for our people. And we may disagree, we may have differences about how we see that, but most of us could probably tell a story. I could show you pictures where I had my Jerry curl, and and I sure thought that was it. You know, and then that class I took, that uncle that sat me down, that book I read, that reggae lyrics I broke down, you know, that pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. It's that self-identity, that self-consciousness that takes an Isabella Baumfree and turns her into a Sojourner Truth. It's that self-knowledge that takes that pimp, that hustler, that I love white woman and turns them into Malcolm X. You know, it's so serious how powerful and transformative it is. And it relates to that whole grassroots understanding that self-knowledge is never really dead. You know, what they did to us and what they're doing to us in the Ma'afa, from slavery to colonialism, and they try to teach us and tell us that they took our culture from us. That is a lie. We cannot believe that lie. Because we have to understand that it is our culture, our spirituality, our collectivity that sustained us through slavery and colonialism and the slave ship and the lynch mobs. We are such a powerful people. The only ones who don't know it are us. They know it. They know it. They know it. They know we're the majority. They know that we could genetically annihilate them. Don't get me started here. Self-knowledge is the basis of all knowledge, and we've seen it over and over again. To me, it doesn't have to happen in a classroom. It doesn't have to happen, it won't happen at Harvard. It doesn't have to happen, you know, in an institution. It can happen at the kitchen table. It should happen when your children are at an independent black school, be it the Nation of Islam school or Ile Omadé. It should happen. Some of us have been raised in black conscious families, and so we were never confused. But the majority of us were, you know, institutionalized and miseducated. And Carter G. Woodson, you know, is profoundly understood. If you change your people's thinking, if you control the people's thinkings, you don't have to worry about their actions. Once you transform and properly educate, not in the institution necessarily, but once you do that, it's done. It's done. And so that's really where it has to all be. That can be done through art. It can be done through music. It can be done through reading, dialogue. There's so many ways. It just has to be done, and then it will be done. And I can't wait for African people to be liberated and take back our rightful place, you know, on this planet, along with our brothers and sisters, because it's a beautiful thing. Alpha, Omega on that one.
Yes. And also I think, you know, part of grassroots leadership or developing leadership in others is about teaching folks and teaching ourselves to be able to name a problem, to see it, and then ask the question why. You know, when we do youth organizing or when we train our members, a lot of it is just asking why. Why is this the way it is? And also cultivating creativity so we can develop solutions, right, to tackle those things head on. But it's also not just about learning and knowing the problems and knowing what to do about them. I think grassroots leadership and leadership in this time really requires discipline and accountability. We cannot be developing leadership, we cannot be developing movements, you know, or participating in movements if we're not disciplined and accountable, both not only to the movement but to organizations, not only to organizations but to your communities, not only to your communities but to your families. You have to be self-aware, live out those values, those principles that you are trained in, but also be accountable and disciplined so that we can carry out this work within this repressive environment that we're in. The state doesn't make it easy. They don't want us to do this work. They don't want us to do it right. They don't want us to develop movements. They don't want us to do cross-movement building. They don't want these conversations to happen. And the only way we can make sure that they are happening is by making sure we're doing them in disciplined ways and we're making ourselves accountable to what really brought us here to begin with.
Yeah, what I want to add to this is study, 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 study. Studying is and studying doesn't mean just having a book, because there are many books that are written to confuse us. So studying means also listening to the old folks, listening to the wisdom of the old folks. And we have to be paying attention as to what's going on. And really it's about hard work. And I know I'm echoing what everybody else has said here. It's about hard work. It's about the concept of service, being of service to our community, to our people, to each other in a community, and to really have that self-love. It's not love of self which makes us arrogant and think, well, we are king or queen or this or that, but it's the love of appreciating each other as human beings and appreciating animal life and the planet as well, nature, to know our place in it, and to be able to live in harmony. I know it may sound corny, but it's not. Because when you develop that kind of, with the wisdom of the old folks, you grow up in knowing your history. No one can take that away from you.
Never.
You see, and not adding too much of the personal, I had several experiences where when I came to the US as a young kid, 14 years old, didn't know much, didn't speak much English. But I was in an ESL program, the first high school, and I didn't know, when people were calling my name, the way they pronounced Pierre, I didn't know they were talking to me, because the way it sounded. So I was like, you. But what sustained me was my grandmother's wisdom, what she had taught me. So I knew there were certain things I couldn't accept. And I stood up for myself when they were trying to put me in an inferior class. Now I couldn't speak English, but I stood up to the teacher to let him and her know that I wasn't going to accept it. And they had to get a translator for me to tell them exactly what I wanted. So, and it came from that. Also the studying, the hard working for your community, having this sense of value that we can impart to our kids, you know, and this kind of and the love of self. Again, I'm repeating this, but this is so important. Because many times they tell us that we are nobody's. Listen, in Haiti, where I grew up, we defeated the troops of Napoleon. We defeated the British. We defeated the Spanish. But many Haitians, many of us are walking around with a colonized mind. You know why? In 1861, the Haitian government turned over our education system to the French. And so they, even though we knew that our ancestors had done this, but they messed with our minds so much. This is a big part of what Haiti's problem is today. So President Aristide wrote a book called Philosophical Reflections on Mental Decolonization. So the work of decolonizing our minds is going on right now as we speak in Haiti. So, and I'll stop right here to say that and I know we are talking about leadership, but these are components of that leadership. Study, hard work, knowledge of self, and that love of each other that we need to cultivate to our people, among our children, and as we are going through this world, resisting the kind of hatred they try to make us have for ourselves and for each other.
Wonderful.
So I believe grassroots organizing leadership has to be done from the correct analysis of this state and time. If we fail to recognize that we are in a state of emergency, that our very existence depends on our ability to organize and lead, we do our children and the future generation a total injustice. And if we take on that attitude and understanding that we cannot get caught up in the paralysis of analysis, what does that mean, paralysis of analysis? We do an event, and then we analyze what we did with the event for so long that we don't move. Understanding that we are at a state of emergency, it requires us to make extreme sacrifice for our lives and for this future generation.
We're at war.
We are at war. The other part of it is understanding what type of war. Right now, it requires a psychological war. I heard someone talking about the arts, the drum beat, the ability of our youth really expressing through spoken word and poetry. Even through the dance that they do have to be an expression of the pain that we're suffering in our community. We are at war and it's psychological, and in order to transform people, we have to give it to them where we know it works. And we are an artistic people.
Jeez.
You hear what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
We have to also realize and expose the lies.
Yes.
See, the system has convinced us that it's for true freedom, justice, and equality for all. But to organize and build grassroots organization, those lies has to be exposed.
That's right.
This system did not come into existence from a few good white men tearing down and taking away our indigenous brothers and sisters, bringing them through a complete genocide, having this land and then saying, oh, now we need to build it, and so we are destined to make this world a better place. So let's go get us some Africans and come back and exploit them to build the economy. And then so, well, you know, we're not big enough. Let's go ahead and take Southern California and what is it, the Southwest, and kill off our Latino brothers and sisters. We all have been under attack, and until we get a correct analysis of what this system is doing, we cannot build grassroots organizations. The lies have to be exposed. And we cannot get caught up in thinking that in order for grassroots organizations to grow, that it has to be a mass of people to hear. And I always use Rosa Parks as an example. She sat at a meeting probably similar to this, listening to the pain of Emmett Till. When she was asked to get up on that bus, she refused, and her thoughts was about Emmett Till. So here's an older woman that sparked the grassroots movement. So we have to be clear that just planting one seed can be the spark we need to start a real revolution of change. And the last part of it is so critical. Frederick Douglass said it best. It is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men.
That's right.
This is about our babies. We have to teach them and get them ready for what's coming.
Gotta follow that up again. I'm gonna try. I got this. But it's a lot of interpersonal work. It's that work that's being done inside to lead by example. Because when you lead by example, it's not hard to get people to see that and follow that. Because if you just talking and talking, I mean, we've been listening to people talk for a long time. I'm trying to see how you move. And if I see how you move and you moving in that direction, of course, I'm gonna be right there. Especially if you're telling me to walk beside you and not behind you. And so I believe accountability is to be there too. Because I want to be held accountable for my actions, because that's the only way I'm gonna grow and work on those interpersonal skills. And my development, I agree heavily with the brother down there about development, because our development right now, we don't really have those tools and those resources to develop past where we're at. But we do have, what we do have is creativity, and we excel higher than anybody with our creativity, because we've developed that into, we can come up with something right now and it'll take the world by storm. And that's coming from our creativity, you know? And if we mix that in with that political education, that educational piece, that education that comes from each other, not necessarily if a person can't read a book, at least I'm gonna be able to relay that to that person and meet them right there and understand that it took me a long time to come to this evolutionary stance in life, and it was some struggle for me to get to this spot right now. And I just believe that we just gotta make it do what it do.
I was told earlier for this question, just a quick note, if you park right there on the street, you gotta continue to feed the meter so you don't get a ticket to get to it. Okay. Okay, the need for revolution can be found in plenty of books. We have a sister with a book stand over here. I see Ready for Revolution there on the left-hand corner. We have our party literature over here. Please make sure you visit the table at several points throughout the day. And we have a plethora of organizers with knowledge that can point you in the right direction, just sit down and teach you about the ills of the system and the inner workings of the system and the devilish motives of the system. So that's all there. But right now, I want to go to kind of the other side of that coin. We've been talking about grassroots organizing. I want to talk about success stories right now of grassroots organizing. For someone in the crowd who is here, something y'all have said have got them thinking about individual advancement as far as their political education, and all of what you have said collectively might be pushing them to start to look at grassroots organizations. You all do different work in different sectors, but it's all good work, it's all revolutionary political work. Can you tell the masses about some success stories that you have had in your grassroots organizing?
Sacred Sites Protection and Rights of Indigenous Tribes is an organization that was founded by Norman Wounded Knee Dale Campo. He is Miwok. Our organization, as stated before, is located in Vallejo. And in 2011, they were fighting to defend a sacred site called Segoria Bay. The East Bay Regional Trails and the Greater Vallejo Recreation District wanted to desecrate that site in the name of recreation. There's Ohlone ancestral remains there. It was a gathering place for many different nations, including the Ohlone and Patwin. So, you know, they didn't want their ancestors' remains desecrated, and so they spiritually occupied that space for 109 days. I lived in Vallejo most of my life, and I didn't know the significance of Segoria Day. I used to take my dog on a walk there, and then when I found out what was going on with Wounded Knee, I decided I want to go there and just offer support. And so the way I decided I'd do that is to just offer prayer. They had a sacred fire that they had started, and it ran the entire 109 days. And in doing so, I got to learn more about not just what was going on with the indigenous in this area, but about myself and my indigenous roots. And so it was a real eye-opener because I still have colonized thinking. I'm still learning every day. And so it provided me with an opportunity to get in touch with people that were trying to make a difference, that were trying to decolonize and make a change and protect the sacred and way of the ancestral remains. And so in doing so, Wounded Knee afforded me the great opportunity of being able to offer selfless service and do some volunteer work. And in doing so, I was able to become a part of the fight to remove indigenous mascots in public schools. And that legacy that is there for many generations, and they take the native sacred items, our feathers and regalia, and use it as a way to mock at their sporting events. That's right, that's right. And so it's really disrespectful. And so the Vallejo City Unified School District heard what we wanted to do. They were familiar with it, and I think it's a great success story to be a part of something being removed in an institution. They removed that mascot, and not only did they take responsible action, but in that they have continued that responsible action by consulting with the indigenous and getting us in there so that the young people and students learn more about California natives and the history of the land that they dwell upon. And so something so small like you said, success story, I just wanted to go offer prayer, and look what happened, and I'm very grateful for that, to the Creator and for everyone, the ancestors on that side that made it possible. And so you never know what can happen. Like you said, person goes somewhere one time, they never thought they could be a part of something, they didn't have any confidence, or maybe they want to help and don't know how. And that's just an example, I think, of how someone is able to do that. And thank you for letting me share that with you.
I was born in Vallejo. I lived in the North Bay for most of my life, and unlike maybe some of the panelists here, my parents didn't have a revolutionary consciousness or understanding of indigenous sovereignty. So when I completed my PhD and came back here to the Bay Area, I had brand new eyes on the land I've always lived on. And so when I did come back to Vallejo and found out about the mascot controversy and the confrontation that was happening at the school board meetings, I made myself available and came prepared with something to say. And just being able to eloquently speak about the topic of mascots and institutionalized racism, I think really helped a lot of the young people, adults, and community members in the area to have a greater understanding of the issue, because a lot of them probably didn't have a strong opinion to begin with. And because of the success of decolonizing the mascots, we've had more support from the community. We've been called to have more leadership roles in the community. We've been invited to come in and start preparing an ethnic studies program in the Vallejo City Unified School District. So there are lots of possibilities when you find a success. Now things like the mascot topic on a national scale with the Washington Slurskins, that is very much different because of the resources that the NFL has to hire lawyers and attorneys to find ways to squash your complaints. But on a local level, we have more power to be able to reach a critical mass and create change. So I think that what we're seeing on a national level is very difficult to create change for like police terrorism or mascot issues. But if we work locally, we can really apply much more pressure than we could on a national scale. And also by having a small success, we gain momentum.
All right. So in 2013, Malcolm X Grassroots Movement and some of our allies, we were able to successfully win the mayoral election in Jackson, Mississippi. We got our chairman, former chairman is now passed, Chokwe Lumumba, elected mayor. This was the result of 40 years of organizing, right? Fighting the Klan, waging legal struggles against COINTELPRO, right? With forces around the country. When it says about 2005, 2006, we organized the first of what will become our People's Assemblies in response to Hurricane Katrina. After that, we were able to organize the local Jackson People's Assembly. It was a democratic institution set up outside of the state system, outside the city government system. And we got Chokwe elected to the city council first. And then from there, he got elected mayor. And the thing about it that's really important is that we didn't get any funds from the Democratic Party. We didn't get any foundation support. Right? This is all grassroots work. Right? We had a fundraiser here in this very building. Right? We had artists from this community who understood the political importance of what we were trying to do. And Jackson, so folks know, is a city, capital of Mississippi. It's Mississippi, right? Where people are like 85% of the people are black, right? And we've always said that we need to be able to make decisions for ourselves when we're the majority of the people, right? And we were able, he was only in office for 6 months before he passed. But our organization and our social movement has learned a lot in those 6 months of being in office, of having our organizers as part of the staff, right? We learned a lot, we made a lot of mistakes while we were there, right? But then we also got a lot of clarity about how the system, the structures of the system works, right? And I think it's something that's very critical. We're able to run his son for the special election, and he came in second place. And the only reason we lost that election is because the white folks turned out in record numbers against us. White folks had like 90% voter turnout. It was white folks living in New York, living in DC voting against us because they were able to have absentee ballots because they still own property there, right? You know, so we learned a lot, and those lessons that we learned, the plan that we have, we were able to see that our plan actually worked, right? And we're able to regroup. You know, we're focusing on the economic component of our plan now, but the next time there's a mayoral election, we're going to run Chokwe's son again, and we're building the groundwork again to make sure that we're able to win this time, right? And it took the trust of the people. Chokwe always said the people will decide. That was his all. He always used to say that. The people will decide in the end, at the end of the day. And that's what happened. And through the trust in our organization, the trust in our movement, just those years of experience and relationship, we're going to be able to carry this work forward and open up some real space to make some changes, in Jackson, Mississippi, and from Jackson, be able to make some changes for Black people all around the country.
Successes of our work. I'm so fortunate to stand on such strong shoulders and ideology because Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, who organized with other students to bring forth the first Black Studies department in the country, had such clear ideology. And when they left Merritt to go down the street and open up the first chapter of the Black Panther Party, the movement didn't end because what they understood was that the need to transform and to build institutions. And so a counselor named Sid Walton, who was at Merritt, was a hardcore Pan-Africanist, nationalist. I have a picture I just have to show you of him. This is him with his military assault rifle. So he's at the college and he's like fighting the battle to build the department, and along with students. And so when they organized the first department in 1967, it was in various departments around the country. They put this curriculum together, but they understood that they understood Black nationalism. So from having different courses like in the history department, in the political science department, in the English department, that wasn't what Black Studies was. That Black Studies was its own separate institution inside the institution. So the movement continued after Huey and Bobby are, organizing the Panthers to make a separate independent department with its own funds, its own governance, its own hiring, and they hired just some revolutionary, on-point brothers and sisters who are not in the history books, Sarah Fabio, who became well-known in the Black arts movement, and just these amazing educators to build the department. But what I think most people don't know is that the Black Studies movement had a goal of not only having a department, but having an independent Black university. And when Merritt College was in the community on Grove Street, now Martin Luther King, Boulevard, the plans were already in works to move Merritt College away from the people up to the hills, where the people didn't go, and wasn't nobody living. And so they rushed that plan because the militancy was so on point. There were already FBI, police, posing as students and administrators and faculty all up in there. because the seed, you know, that was blossoming. So they moved it up to the hills, but Merritt College on Grove Street was still open for a few years, and the students, as well as some of the councils and faculty, were calling for an independent black university. Not an HBCU, but an independent black university. And so they understood that this is not something that's supposed to exist within the so-called ivory towers, that it's supposed to be independent. So I say all that just to say that our department is very clear on understanding we don't have to recreate everything or rethink everything. If the origins have the truth and have the solid foundation, we just continue to build on that. And so we are building a pyramid, you know, brick by brick, piece by piece. This is not a job that you go to and go home. This is a movement, and it's bricks by bricks by bricks. We have 10 faculty in our department. We are on our 9th year of Black consciousness raising tours to the revolutionary Black world, where we take students who've never left the Bay Area, you know, to the Maroon communities or to the slave dungeons, to the Ashanti villages. We have opened our Africana Center, where you learn our history and politics on iPads, you know, the digital thing. And we're building, 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 building. We're not done. So those are all successes to me, but they're really not until we have that independent black university, which is it's coming. So I wanted to say what the real success is in the young people. And I'm just going to talk about one because so many come to mind. We were called into juvenile hall off 150th about 6 years ago. You know, can you teach a class inside juvenile hall? And we were like, yes. So we came in, our first student was a young brother, he could not get enough books to read. You know, this is the teacher's dream. So we had him reading Mumia, you know, Angela Davis, just Frantz Fanon, just everything, everything, everything. He became free inside this place of incarceration. Like Frederick Douglass on the plantation, who said in his own words, I'm free. I just have to figure out how to get my body to where my mind is at. So he became free, and he was calling the COs, the overseer. He had it all done. It was great. But we planted that seed, you know, and he watered the seed, and we continued to work with him. On his birthday, when you turn 18 in juvenile hall, they typically, your birthday present is that you're sent off to Santa Rita, then San Quentin. So on his birthday, someone made him a cake, and they sent him to Santa Rita, and then he did his time in San Quentin. And beautiful, beautiful success was that as soon as he got out, he came right to our college, right to our classroom, and enrolled and finished his education. He was an honor student, you know, BSU involved. He had that consciousness, and now he's transferring to UC Berkeley. And the only reason that's important, because it's not UC Berkeley that's important, it's that he has a political education and a political consciousness and a community connectedness, so that he understands that everything he learns and does is for the people, from the people, and that he can utilize the training at UC Berkeley to, you know, advance the community. So it's all the successes of the students. You know, I can tell stories forever about that because they're amazing. You know, the transformation's amazing.
67 years ago, on May 15, 1948, Israel was created on Palestinian land. And since then, until today, Palestinians continue to resist. The 5,000 political prisoners, Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, continue to resist and go on hunger strike. And every single Palestinian anywhere in the world in diaspora knows the village they came from, their mother and father's village, the name of it, and what is grown on it, what kind of land is harvested there, what kind of homes were built. First, I want to start with that success story, because that's a success story for our people. And building on that, last summer, Israel was bombing Gaza and, you know, was terrorizing Palestinians all throughout historic Palestine. And our people resisted and were able to get Israel out of Gaza as a result. And right here in the Bay Area, we also resisted. So there was, you know, as people were resisting there, our people were mobilizing in the thousands in the streets of San Francisco and all over the country to support Palestinian resistance and to challenge Israel everywhere and Zionism everywhere. And locally, we started a campaign called Block the Boat, where we work with partners, over 80 organizations, and we work with ILW, the longshoremen, the workers themselves, and we did real grassroots organizing. We got hated on because we weren't just about action. We didn't want to just shut down the port 2 days from now. We thought long term, and we decided to think strategically. And we planned things out weeks ahead in order to work with the workers to get the solidarity and the buy-in from the people that are most impacted by the port being shut down, but to also work with other communities that are impacted by policing and militarization, both of which Israel has a hand in the United States. And we did so. And we mobilized 5,000 people to the Port of Oakland. We stopped the Israeli Zim ship from docking at the Port of Oakland for 4 days. We did so for 4 days. Back when the ship came back, and we came back again when the ship came back again. And as a result, the Israeli Zim ship is no longer planned to dock anywhere in California or Florida. That's an example of grassroots organizing, of a sustained campaign, of challenging state violence head-on. We confronted the state head-on. We mobilized, we didn't ask for police support. We challenged policing, we challenged militarization, we challenged Israel. We challenge capitalism and the role in which capitalism also perpetuates and is instrumental in state violence and imperialism. And we won, right? We did that and we won, and I think that's an example. But that's just the beginning. So that campaign is part of a longer, sustained campaign to really kick Israel out of the Bay Area, to make sure it's as difficult as possible for Israel to do business anywhere in the Bay Area. And that's the kind of work we're doing when we do boycott, divestment, sanctions work here in San Francisco and the Bay Area. We're exposing the way in which Israel trains local police. We're exposing the way in which city supervisors and city council members go to Israel every single year to learn about how to better police and terrorize communities. We're exposing the way in which the United States is what enables Israel to exist in the first place. And we're exposing the way in which if we bring down Israeli apartheid, we know we will create a dent in state violence here, and we will impact US imperialism. And we're exposing the way in which that's all of our jobs and our responsibilities. So we're moving our own community to the left. We're raising awareness about anti-Black violence in our own communities, racism in our own communities against Black people. We're contributing to the movement for Black power. We're participating in actions and direct actions, and we're bringing our own communities to participate in those direct actions. We're not just educating and mobilizing, we're challenging state violence. And as we speak, our comrade Nesmia Awadeh, a former political prisoner in Palestine, an elder, community organizers, as we talk about intergenerational work and the need to connect to our elders. Nesmia Awadeh, a 68-year-old woman who was imprisoned in Palestine over 40 years ago by the state of Israel, a freedom fighter, is now being targeted by the US federal government for immigration fraud, for not having disclosed that she was imprisoned 40 years ago by the state of Israel. Nonetheless, everybody knows who Nesmia Awadeh is, and everyone always knew who Nesmia Awadeh was. But the state has chosen to target her now, and we are choosing to fight back now. So as we speak, Nesmia is out of jail because of our work as communities who work together to get her out on bail, and we're appealing her case. And we know that justice won't be found in the courts. We know that that's not the end all, but that's the beginning to making sure that our freedom fighter Nesmia Awadeh gets justice in this country, and she's unapologetically supporting Palestine and unapologetically staying rooted in her community, and we are unapologetically supporting our freedom fighter and working on her campaign.
I just wanted to mention again Michael Lange, Pastor. I know people mentioned him earlier, and I always tease him, I always call him Malcolm X. So I just, I keep seeing him in his face. So you see. Just wanted to, success stories. We've had quite a few, but I will mention a couple. Well, on 2 occasions, and it's linked to the Bay Area. When President Al-Sisi was overthrown in 1991, we've never, in Haiti, we've had good, solid representative of the people in office when the US and the Haitian elite overthrew them. But there was never, they always got away with it. But this time, the work of organizing in coalition building between brothers and sisters in Haiti and the work that was going on here, particularly in the Bay Area, us uniting our efforts, we were able to bring him back after 3 years of exile. We were able to bring him back to Haiti and back in office. And that was, it took a lot, Many sisters and brothers kept a vigil for 3 years straight in front of the UN people were getting, in those days, working an extra job so they could provide support for the movement inside Haiti. And so a lot of brothers and sisters here, we had both actions, you know, where we went on the bay pretending to be Haitian refugees, and the immigration service and the Coast Guard came and blockaded us. So many of you took part in those actions in front of the federal building. Many were arrested, blockading the federal building here in Oakland. So as a result, Aristide was returned to Haiti. And when he was elected again in 2000, after 3 years in office, in 2004, the year of Haiti's bicentennial, racist the racist government of France, the US, and Canada spearheaded another coup d'etat to block the bicentennial celebration of Haiti. It wasn't just to be a bicentennial celebration of 200 years of which is a momentous thing anyway, but it was going to be getting together of the entire African family who are coming to Haiti, brothers and sisters from South Africa, from Martinique, Guadeloupe, from the Caribbean, from here in the US. The rendezvous was in Haiti so that we could all sit down together and assess our accomplishments, what we had accomplished, what work needed to be done, what the current state was. Well, the US government, the Bush administration, and many of the Democrats didn't want that to happen. So they led a second coup d'etat against it. And many brothers and sisters were being told that Aristide would never see Haiti again. Well, through our hard work here in Coalition, he went back to Haiti after 7 years of exile. And it was successful organizing by all of you here and working in solidarity with the people, the brothers and sisters in Haiti. Thousands and thousands were killed in that process. We achieved that. But I wanted to get into a more specific case, which was in 1993, when a group of brothers and sisters who were fighting for freedom in Haiti and were being faced with murder by the Haitian military, fled Haiti, and they put them in jail in Guantanamo. Now, many of you don't no longer associate Guantanamo with Haitian refugees, but that's where, you know, they had opened Guantanamo to put Haitian concentration camps there. And those brothers and sisters were being told to the American public that they were infected with HIV/AIDS. And so it was designed to really turn off people and to get people to participate in the conspiracy to deny them their rights as human beings. But people rose above that, and there was a tremendous movement. Brothers and sisters there in Guantanamo, the Haitians, they wrote, one woman in particular wrote a farewell letter to her children because she thought she was going to die there. And that letter made the rounds. And people mobilized, the African American community mobilized, everyone mobilized. And after a long struggle, about a year and a half, we successfully got them out, and they were able to gain political asylum right here in the US. So to me, that particular example was so profound and powerful because they were appealing. When I say they, the racists, they were appealing to this anti-Haitian sentiment, to anti-black folk sentiment. They were trying to make people here in the US and these people are infected, they are bringing diseases here, we don't want them. But people rose above that, you see, and they called out these racists for who they were, and they snatched the people and brought them here. So I want to pay tribute to that. And there are many other examples, but I'll start with this one to show no matter how they try to put us down, that our people rise above it and we can successfully organize, and no matter how much the demonization is, but we have to be steady, we have to work hard, we have to convince each other, we have to talk to each other, we have to approach it with love for each other, and bring the truth.
She had in her story was about a young man that was in, I believe it was juvenile hall or somewhere, that was locked up and came back into school. For me, one of the greatest success was clarity in this system, in this heinous act perpetrated on people that look like me.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that there was an enormous amount of freedom that came from that. Because I was one that went in the military in the 70s. Jumped in the 75th Ranger Battalion, 1st Strike Force, anywhere in this world will take you out. That's how I was trained. And I believed that what I would do was the right thing to do. So for me, the greatest success was the liberation from understanding that that was all direct sickness from the system.
That's right.
So I hear what you said when you came back. You had clarity. I understand what that brother talking about when he got all the books. He got clarity.
Yeah.
So for those that are in here that might be considering getting involved, clarity will come. And a new freedom will develop. And a true understanding of the state of emergency we're in will push you to the limit. I'm serious about that. Now, if I talk about some successes from the experience of that freedom, I was involved in, but not responsible for, the first officer in the state of California to be arrested, charged, convicted, and sent to jail behind murder. Another visual, to me, what I consider success, is coming to understand that these shootings are not isolated. It's not from a rural cop or one particular racist cop, but this is systemic, and that I needed to embrace other families so that they could begin to understand the situation and their experiences that they may experience in this process of seeking justice. And so with that freedom and then being received by these families, to me, has become success in this movement. I think one of the other greatest success is having this vision today about building up black men. And so I have created a coalition of black men that have suffered this heinous act of losing a family member, whether it be a son or a daughter, not excluding our sisters. I'm not excluding our sisters, but my primary focus has been on us brothers, us fathers, us uncles, and regaining our ability to protect our teary-eyed mother. Because as we're taught, a nation cannot rise no higher than the highest of the women that are within our community. And so it is our responsibility to ensure that the existence of us by ensuring that our queens are protected. And what does that take? That takes coming to the responsibility of understanding respect and reverence to them in our existence. Because they are Mother Earth. You know, they are the mothers of our future generation. That coalition is critical. And I think from all that, I've learned that maybe what I'm doing is working. Because I get invited all over this country to speak to communities about building movements and connecting families. You know, just last night I was in Seattle. For those that came down from Portland, I was in Seattle, and there were many conversations about Portland and what's happening in the state of Washington. And I just did overnight because it was important for me to be back here. And getting back here was success. You know what I'm saying? Because I just felt that being a part of this was critical in our local area to be a part of this dialogue that's taking place. Because this is what success is being a part of. And so I'm clear about that. And I think part of my last piece of success that I can express to me that is, tangible, was being asked to be the commencement speakers of Balboa High School. You heard me speak and wanted me to speak to them on their graduation day. But it didn't end there. The black graduating class of Cal State East Bay wants me to be their commencement speaker for their black graduation. Right. So I'm like, wow, thank you. And I'm going to add this last piece. Our good friend Rashid shared, and I thought it was so powerful at a Black graduation. Coming to understand that Jesus was not white. Do you know how many of us are so confused with that our ability to even move forward is warped? And with it being warped, there can be no success in anything that you do until you get the correct analysis of what you're involved in. To me, success really relies in the inner person and the enlightenment that comes from the struggle.
Teach.
Here we go again. Right. Successes of our work. I feel like I could be up here all day talking about the successes of our work, but I feel like being in this room with all you beautiful folks and looking out and seeing all my comrades still doing this work and sustaining is success. I feel like a new member to the party is success. I feel like the formation of the All-African Women's Revolutionary Union is a huge success. Because with their pushing the line of accountability, we show that, and we have folks in the community up in Portland that have come up to us. We had a couple that are like, yeah, these individuals are giving us a hard time. We were like, we want to call the cops, but we don't want to do that. Y'all always say leave the cops out of it. So what should we do? We're like, all right, we got this. We sit them down, we tell them like, look, you got to stop talking to these people, because this ain't cool. And we hold them accountable. And then in return, you should see their faces. They're like, oh man. And so we got to get used to holding each other accountable, and that is big. Another success I would say we got is we started this breakfast program in Portland, Oregon. And that's one stage of our community defense project, because we feel like if we can liberate a zone and show folks that we can liberate a zone right here in the Snakes, then we can liberate all types of zones in Africa and around the world. Yeah, and I feel like just being able to sustain this work and be in it, that's success, because I see people burning out all the time, and they only been in it since August. So, when I see folks that's been in it for decades, I mean, that's success.
I asked that question, and I'm glad to have been able to end like that. We're going to allow some time for question and answer. But I asked that question, and I end the panel presentation.